Chapter 31. Heavy Armored Beast. When Jack Clark returned home, Glenn Clark hadn't finished school yet. Throwing the backpack on the sofa, he went up to the second floor. In the room, the six-legged salamander, which had grown to 70 centimeters after eating once in the morning, lay on the floor. Its black bean-like eyes quietly watched Jack Clark. With anticipation, Jack took a box from the drawer, picked one of the 3 iron beetles, and put it into the mouth of the six-legged salamander. Begin. Boom. Accompanied by Jack's confirmation, the evolution energy within the six-legged salamander, which had already reached the requirements for evolution, erupted like a flood. That was the energy of evolution that had been accumulating in its body. As it passed through, the salamander's whole body cells crazily split, compressed, and became stronger. Moreover, deep inside the avatar's body, the originally fixed genetic sequence began to evolve in a stronger and more perfect direction after absorbing the iron beetle. Crack crack. On the avatar's smooth and tough surface, layers of blackish chitinous bones grew like scales at a visible speed. At the same time, a heat flow appeared out of nowhere inside Jack's body. However, compared to the weak feeling of the first time, this time's evolution energy increased by more than 10 times, and the strength of muscles and bones skyrocketed at a terrifying speed. This kind of enhancement was holistic. His whole body cells constantly divided, compressed and became more explosive, just like the avatars, and the internal organs became stronger. This evolution lasted for almost an hour. Phew. Action. Jack exhaled and opened his eyes. His clear black and white pupils looked as bright and radiant as a black gem, and a faint oppressive feeling radiated from them. Feeling the surging power in his body, Jack showed a smile because this improvement exceeded his expectations. With excitement, Jack called up the attribute page with a thought. Level. First layer heaven. Physique. 58. Strength. 60. Agility. 52. Spirit. 55. Talent. Soul split. Cultivation methods. Lotus platform meditation method. Perfect dragon elephant power. First layer. Heart's eye bright knife. Sword skill. First layer. Heart's eye. Avatar. Hexagonal armored beast. Level. Low level unique beast evolved twice extraordinary creature. Adult body length limit 3 meters. Talent. Strength, powerful muscles and bones that can unleash 100 times their own power. Defense, special body surface structure, steel hardness armor with 100 times its volume and pressure defense. Note, the defense decreases in weak areas of the armor. Evolution value. 0.03. All 4 major attributes have increased by 30 points, which means a 3-fold enhancement of ordinary human physique. A single attribute has even surpassed the first layer heaven limit. Jack's gaze swept over the changes in his attributes, and then his attention shifted to the avatar's data below. The avatar's name became Hexagonal Armored Beast, which had nothing to do with the salamander anymore. Its level was at the low-level unique beast, and the body size growth limit was 3 meters. However, these were not important. The defensive talent below caught Jack's eye. As I expected, I have gained another talent. A smile appeared on Jack Clark's face. With a 100-fold increase in defensive power and the ability to burst out 100-fold power with his talent, his avatar would be safe as long as he was careful. After checking the details of the attribute changes, Jack closed the attribute page and looked at the heavy armored beast avatar on the ground. Its body length was still 70 centimeters, the same as when it first evolved, but its density and weight had increased several times, and it was even thicker horizontally. Its entire body was covered in black exoskeleton armor, including its abdomen, especially the back, which looked like a piece of armor stitched together. Even the dorsal fin that runs from its head to its tail became blunt and thick, including the tail that occupied half its body covered in black ringed armor. After evolution, its limbs became stronger and more powerful, and were also covered in smaller scale armor, with claws as sharp as small daggers. Its once wide head was now covered in a black exoskeleton, with protruding eyebrow bones protecting its eyes, as if it were wearing a helmet. Apart from that, its upper and lower jawbones became even more protruding, revealing 2 rows of sharp teeth and even 4 sharp canine teeth. The 2 sides of its head extended outward like tiny wings, with the 3 pairs of feather horns becoming completely hardened, their colors becoming even more vivid red, giving it a somewhat ferocious appearance. At this point, the heavy armored beast avatar looked like a completely fierce and mutated beast. It was hard to imagine that it was originally a 6-legged salamander no bigger than a palm. At that moment, the sound of the front door opening came from downstairs. Glenn Clark saw the backpack on the sofa and shouted at Jack upstairs, "Bro, you're back." Jack replied from upstairs, I had to leave early today. You go and cook, and I will go out for a bit. Oh. After dealing with Glenn with a casual remark, Jack rummaged through the wardrobe to find a double-shoulder backpack and then, using his consciousness, he carefully guided the heavy armored beast to crawl inside. Once the heavy armored beast was curled up, Jack pulled up the zipper and lifted it by the strap. He immediately felt the weight in his hand and the sound the strap made under the heavy burden. By his estimate, the heavy armored beast weighed at least 80 kilograms, an astonishing weight. Added Nobleman at. However, this weight was nothing to him, who had an average physique 5 times that of an ordinary person. Jack carefully carried the backpack outside, avoiding any damage to it from the heavy armored beast, and walked to the riverside hundreds of meters away under the sunlight. Ordinarily, releasing a mutated beast like this should be done in secret during the night, which suited the atmosphere. Then, when coming back in the night, he would encounter some accidents, and something else would happen, like playing the hero saving a damsel, fitting the plot better. As his thoughts ran wild, Jack soon reached the riverside and followed the riverbank downwards. After checking his surroundings and seeing that no one was around, he put down his backpack, unzipped it, and the black unique beast slipped into the river through the weeds. Gurgle. A few bubbles burst out, and the heavy armored beast swam along the riverbed. Suddenly, another underwater scene appeared in Jack's eyes. From the heavy armored beast's perspective, the surrounding vision became blurry, and with the help of sunlight, it could see clearly within a range of about 10 meters in the 2-meter deep water. Here, the weeds swayed, small fishes swam, and suddenly a large fish weighing several pounds appeared, scaring the small fishes into a frenzy. Just as the fish swam past the heavy armored beast, it was suddenly bitten in half by the heavy armored beast's powerful jaws with a crunch. Chewing on the fish meat, the heavy armored beast, controlled by Jack's consciousness, swam along the small river towards the main stream, tens of miles away. Only deep water would have big fish, and a wide river would have abundant resources. It was now ready to kill and eat until it was full. At that moment, the heavy armored beast felt a faint sense of excitement, as if it were experiencing the freedom of the sky and the vastness of the sea. It had been kept in the room for too long. Not only was the space too small, but also the food was insufficient. If there had been enough food, the heavy armored beast's avatar could have evolved 10 days earlier. However, due to Jack's limited resources, the night time was basically wasted. Chapter 32. Can only help so much. After his avatar entered the river, Jack Clark turned around to leave. Yet, due to the distraction of controlling the heavy armored beast swimming around, he seemed a little distracted along the way. It was the same during dinner in the evening. Seeing Jack Clark, who kept halting his meal, Doris Raven, sitting opposite him, expressed her concern. Jack, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Jack replied, snapping back to his senses. Just earlier, the heavy armored beast had encountered a 1-meter-long big green fish at the riverbed. Without giving it another thought, Jack pounced it, flipping over the larger green fish swiftly. Despite the considerable size difference, the heavy armored beast simply trapped the green fish underneath its claw. Its immense strength made the fish completely immobile at the riverbed. After this evolution, the avatar's talent for a 100-fold increase in strength was fully unleashed. Now, a single claw can exert a force of over 1,000 kilograms, which is terrifyingly formidable. Added Nobleman at. And this was only because it was only 70 centimeters long at this stage, still in its juvenile phase. Once the heavy armored beast grows to 3 meters and weighs hundreds or even thousands of kilograms, its strength at the same size will reach a horrifying level. After dinner, Jack went upstairs to practice under the pretext of cultivation, while continuing to control the heavy armored beast swimming. Approximately after an hour, they finally arrived at the mouth of the river, dozens of miles away. With the river water surging under the ivy-covered riverbank, a menacing black head protruded from the water. Jack looked around through his avatar. There were no buildings nearby and the river dike behind him was desolate with only scattered street lamps along the riverside road. The yellow earth bank here was several meters above the water level, suitable for burrowing and creating a cave. Although the 6-legged salamander was amphibious and could stay in the water for an extended period, Jack believed that a nest on the bank would be safer. Under Jack's control, the heavy armored beast dug out an underwater cave entrance with its double claws, and then expanded it, digging upward. Soon, a dark hole was dug, which was several meters deep and turned upward in twists. The deepest part occupied an area of 2 square meters. Then, Jack dug out another small vent above the entrance to the cave. Phew. In the room, Jack exhaled and slowly opened his eyes. Controlling the avatar in the wilderness was different from inside the house. Jack had to keep his attention diverted to avoid accidents caused by a delayed response to the heavy armored beast. Even if it didn't affect him, the loss would still be considerable. After all, as long as the heavy armored beast continued to evolve, it would not only become a powerful force, but each evolution would also bring a massive improvement to his strength. So, it was only after burrowing a cave for hiding that Jack was able to withdraw most of his mental focus, preparing to start the night's cultivation task. However, Jack barely started cultivating when he felt something different. As a much thicker amount of his chi blood circulated through his body, the free, extraordinary energy around was attracted and then refined inside his body by his spirit power. This was happening both in terms of circulation speed of his chi blood and the amount of extraordinary energy absorbed. Since both rates had doubled, the overall cultivation speed was increased by twofold. He felt that the dragon elephant power, which he had initially anticipated to take 4 months to break through to the first layer, could now possibly achieve that breakthrough in just over a month. This change took Jack by surprise, and then he began cultivating even harder. As his chi blood kept circulating, refining the free energy between heaven and earth, Jack's muscles, tendons, and fascia were being continually strengthened, getting more sturdy each time they circulated. Of course, this strengthening was a slow process. Ellipsis. In the morning, just as he left his house, his younger brother Glenn Clark came up to him and compared their heights before exclaiming in surprise, "Brother, have you grown taller again?" Action. Just a month ago, Jack was only 1.7 meters short compared to the 1.75 meters tall Glenn, who has been that height since he was 13. During this period, Jack had unintentionally grown as tall as Glenn due to the continuous strengthening of his physique and his cultivation. Not only had his height increased, the once thin body had also become more robust. This robustness was not the fierce strength Glenn possessed, but a harmonious symmetry. The upper body was slightly muscular, his shirt being strained in the process. His trousers straight, combined with a tall and straight posture, gave him an aura of radiant vitality. "I've been growing recently," Jack Clark responded casually. Both brothers were headed to school. Just as they reached the crossroads that led to the city area, a girl walked over from the side. She waved at Jack upon seeing him. The girl had a slim and elegant figure, her waterfall-like black hair was tied back with a white butterfly knot. With a pure and beautiful face, she appeared as a striking sight wherever she stood. Glenn exclaimed in surprise, "Bro, she seems to be waving at you." "Yes, she's my classmate," Jack nodded as he smiled slightly at Freya passing by. At this point, the green light for pedestrians came on and Jack, followed by Glenn, turned towards her. "It's not often we meet, shall we walk together?" "Sure." Freya nodded gently. Glenn moved closer and said naively, "You're so beautiful, you're just like a fairy from the costume dramas." "I'm sorry, this is my little brother, Glenn." Jack was a bit embarrassed. Freya suppressed a giggle. "No worries, your brother is so adorable." As the three of them walked forward, Glenn sped up to reach Freya's other side, curiously asking, "Are you and my brother close?" Freya paused. "We're just classmates." "Oh, here I was thinking you and my brother were good friends." Glenn seemed a bit disappointed. "Friends? Probably, I guess." Freya mentioned, her gaze moving towards Jack, blinking. Jack smiled, replying, "Of course, we are. Thinking about it, they've known each other for quite a while. They've been getting along pretty well since their days of learning the body casting skill. Basically, their relationship was not any different than that of friends." At this point, Glenn noticed a few of his friends up ahead. He waved his hand to Jack. "Bro, pretty sister, I have to go first." As he ran off to join his friends, Glenn gave Jack a meaningful wink which seemed to suggest, "Bro, I've done all I could." Jack was left speechless. After Glenn left, Jack and Freya walked towards school side by side, casually discussing their cultivation experiences. Upon entering the school gate, they bumped into their classmate, Vera. Her eyes widened in surprise as if she had just seen something extraordinary. In the classroom, Jack had just sat down when Justin Wellen, who was sitting in front of them, turned around to talk to him. A surprised whisper followed, "Jack, why does it feel like you've grown stronger?" Jack glanced at him. "What do you mean stronger?" Justin looked puzzled. "Strange, be honest, have you used any cultivation resources after you got home yesterday? Do you really think I, who can't even afford the resources for replenishing chi blood during Foundation establishment, can afford cultivation resources?" Jack was speechless. "That seems reasonable, but..." Justin's confusion deepened. He had just fought with Jack a few days ago, so he was quite sensitive to the changes in Jack's aura. As soon as Jack sat down today, Justin sensed a faint threat from him. It was still the same person, but for some reason, there was an inexplicable sense of oppression. But how could Jack pose a threat to him? He knew Jack's talent very well. Jack might have a promising future because of his steady personality, but Justin didn't believe Jack could suddenly have a breakthrough and surpass him. They were just first layer heaven, still in the realm of physical cultivation, not even at the stage of sixth level heaven, where enlightenment mattered most. How could his strength suddenly skyrocket? Could I be wrong? Justin scratched his head. Chapter 33 Underwater Hunt. In the afternoon, there were only a dozen people practicing in the large cultivation room. Genius Crystal Leinster and Matt Watkins from the class had their own small groups and rented a club practice room. As the surrounding classmates practiced boxing, swordsmanship, and other weapons, Jack Clark held a sword in one hand behind his back, slightly closing his eyes. He had not been able to enter the state of heart's eye before in his cultivation. However, today when he calmed his breath and focused his mind, a vague image appeared in his mind. His 55-point spiritual attribute was equivalent to 5 to 6 times that of ordinary people. The powerful spirit power naturally spread out, covering a range of several meters. Under normal conditions, a cultivator's spirit power would also increase in the later stages, allowing the mind and will to be released and perceive everything around them. But when your spirit power perceives an opponent in the distance, they can also detect you instantly. Therefore, the creator of this cultivation method thought of another shortcut by tapping into the human 5 senses, cultivating them to their limit, and ultimately developing a mysterious 6th sense. At that time, as long as there was a malicious glance on them, regardless of the distance, they could perceive it instantly, even surpassing an opponent's timing in battle. As the mantra appeared in his mind, Jack slowly concentrated his spirit power on his senses of hearing, smelling, touching, etc., and stimulated these senses infinitely with the sword's edge. He didn't know if it was because of his enhanced strength or evolution, but soon Jack's body hair could feel the weak flow of air around him. These fluctuations were caused by the ripples of the air being stirred by the practice of those around him and the sharp vibrations of their weapons tearing through the air. As his mind quieted, Jack's mind became like a transparent mirror, with ripples constantly fluctuating on it, forming some fragmented, vague lines. This cultivation session lasted until noon. Jack slowly opened his eyes, looked at the classmates who had finished their practice and were preparing to have lunch, and summoned the attribute page with a thought. As expected, under the sword skill remark, the heart's eye finally made its entrance. Upon seeing this, Jack smiled. As long as he had entered the heart's eye state once and it had been recorded on the attribute page, he could slowly improve his skill with diligent cultivation. After everyone left, Jack went to a strength tester and took a deep breath. He saw his body sinking, his body's chi blood operating feverishly, and the muscles in his right arm and upper body slightly swelling, generating a furious power. Boom. Under Jack's punch, the strength tester embedded in the wall shook violently, and the numbers on it went wild before stopping at 1650. Nearly 6 times the strength attribute of ordinary people allowed Jack to have 400 kilograms of arm strength. Furthermore, after practicing dragon elephant power, the special characteristic of solidifying his strength increased his terrifying impact by 1-fold, resulting in an instantaneous explosive force of over 1600 kilograms with a single punch. That was just a simple power explosion. Next, Jack went to the speed testing area and did a test, with data showing 24 meters per second. Although this speed was already fast, Jack was slightly puzzled. Based on the normal speed of ordinary people of over 6 meters per second, his agility attribute of 5 times that of ordinary people should give him 30 meters per second, right? Is speed different from strength in that personal movement speed is affected by external factors such as gravity and air resistance, and cannot be simply converted by a linear multiplier. While feeling puzzled, Jack conducted some more tests. He found that except for his movement speed, which was slightly slower than expected, his nerve response was equivalent to 5 times that of ordinary people, and his body was also highly coordinated and agile. Apparently, the agility attribute wasn't just about speed, it also included body coordination and nerve response. Moreover, at this point, he could still slowly improve his physique and strength while practicing dragon elephant power. It seemed that the evolution of his avatar had also raised his limits, and he was different from those classmates who could no longer improve their physiques after reaching the first layer heaven limit. After completing his daily cultivation in the afternoon, it was already 4 o'clock, but Jack didn't leave the school, and instead went to the 33-layer data room. Every day after cultivation, whenever he had time, he would go to the top floor to find books to read, which helped to enrich his knowledge and prevent him from being ignorant in the future. Under official control, however, this information cannot be found online. When Jack, with two books in hand, arrived at the reading area, he saw the girl with black hair like ink sitting in her usual spot by the window, her head slightly bowed as she quietly read. As Jack sat down across from her, Freya Louise seemed to sense something and looked up slightly. Seeing that it was him, a faint smile appeared on the girl's pretty face, and she nodded to Jack before lowering her head to continue reading. Jack also returned the smile and began reading his own book. At this time, the sunlight shining outside the window cast a warm glow over the two, making the atmosphere a bit lazy and leisurely. Bang! Under the 10-meter deep river surface, water exploded as a 75-centimeter long unique beast, clad in heavy armor, suddenly burst from the riverbed, biting into the abdomen of a big fish swimming above. This was a black fish 1.5 meters long, weighing several tens of kilograms, with sharp teeth in its mouth. The attacked fish twisted its body frantically, trying to break free with a burst of power, but at that moment, a claw unexpectedly struck its head with astonishing force. Crack! The skull of this snake-headed black fish had been shattered by the heavy armored beast's palm. After killing the black fish, which was twice its length, the heavy armored beast began to feed, its sharp teeth and powerful bite easily tearing apart the food. However, with human-like consciousness, the heavy armored beast was picky, eating only meat and showing no interest in the innards. Added nobleman at. As the scattered innards slowly sank, they were immediately swarmed upon by finger-sized small fish, tearing them apart frenziedly. Big fish eat, small fish pick up scraps. This was the ecology beneath the great river. Soon, the nearly 100-kilogram black fish had been devoured, and its terrifying ability to digest the food had visibly bulged the heavy armored beast's body. The grown heavy armored beast looked even more massive and ferocious. Blurble. After emitting a string of bubbles, the heavy armored beast's tail flicked, and it went to search for its next target. But at this time, a dark shadow flashed past deep in the murky waters. Bang! A powerful impact struck the heavy armored beast's belly, sending it flying several meters, continuously tumbling in the water. Action. As the heavy armored beast tried to adjust itself, the creature that attacked it once again charged at an astonishing speed, this time aiming for its head. At this moment, Jack could finally see the appearance of the attacker. It was a fish over 2 meters long, covered in gray scales resembling a sturgeon. However, the sinister mouth filled with sharp teeth, capable of biting off a person's thigh in one bite, was much more fierce than a sturgeon. The fish's speed was incredibly fast, almost appearing in front of the heavy armored beast in a blink of an eye, and then, with a muffled thud, the mutated sturgeon fish was struck in the mouth by the heavy armored beast's tail, its body instantly flipping from the terrifying force. Even though there was a threefold difference in size between the two, it was the mutated sturgeon fish that was flipped, leaving it dazed for a moment. At this time, the heavy armored beast had already pounced, its double claws tearing into the sides of the mutated sturgeon fish's body, slaughtering the scales with razor-sharp claws. The injured mutated sturgeon fish struggled frantically to throw off the heavy armored beast clinging to its body but to no avail. Meanwhile, the heavy armored beast opened its mouth wide. Crack! Under the terrifying bite of the heavy armored beast, the mutated sturgeon fish's spine had been snapped and its body stiffened, losing the ability to fight back, and became food. In this body of water without powerful mutated beasts, the heavy armored beast, with its fearsome strength and astonishing defense, was virtually without enemies. Chapter 34. Terrifying Defense. Jack Clark. Jack Clark. At 6 in the afternoon, Freya Louise looked at the lost in thought Jack Clark and couldn't help but call his name twice. Ah. What's up? Jack Clark withdrew part of his attention. Freya tucked her falling hair behind her ear, pointed at the wall clock, and softly said, "It's already 6 o'clock. I'm heading back. Want to walk together? It's already 6. Time flies when you're ravaging the rivers." Jack Clark nodded sentimentally. Okay. The two got up, put back the books they had borrowed, and walked out of the building. At this time, most students immersed in their cultivation were heading home one after another. They walked out in pairs, discussing the forthcoming ranking competition. The sun set in the west, and the sunlight was no longer as scorching as it had been in the afternoon. A gentle breeze brushed past the girl's hair, bringing with it the faint fragrance of shampoo. Jack Clark turned his head and looked at her stunningly beautiful profile. He casually asked, "Freya, are you going to participate in the competition next Monday?" Freya shook her head, My cultivation method is special, and I don't have much combat strength at the beginning, so I don't plan on participating. He always heard her talk about her special cultivation method. Jack Clark couldn't help but ask curiously, what kind of cultivation method do you practice that doesn't have much combat strength at first? However, the girl's lips tightened, revealing a faint smile. This question is a secret. You'll find out during the second grade trial. Jack Clark helplessly said, all right. What about you? You'll be participating in this ranking competition, right? Freya asked back. Yeah, I'll be participating. Jack Clark nodded. In the past few days, I feel like I've made a breakthrough in my cultivation, so I'm planning to participate in the ranking competition and exchange experiences with my classmates and accumulate combat experience. Freya didn't think much about this reason. In her view, both she and Jack Clark practiced low-level cultivation methods. His initial talent was average among the new students, and participating in the ranking competition may just be to join in the fun. After all, there were more than 100 ordinary geniuses in front of them who established their foundations and practiced advanced cultivation methods within a week. There's a considerable gap between Jack Clark and those people in terms of talent and level of the cultivation methods they practiced. There's no chance he can make it into the top 50. Along the way, the two chatted and walked like ordinary friends. However, Freya noticed that occasionally, while talking, Jack Clark would become lost in thought. Perhaps he was not well rested because of his recent intense cultivation. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel admiration. It doesn't matter if his talent is slightly lacking, as long as he works hard at cultivation, taking one step at a time and accumulating slowly, he will eventually reach heights unimaginable by ordinary people. Ellipsis. On Friday, the second day, the seniors went through a day of monthly exams. Many students looked bitter after receiving each test paper. Helpless, they had spent all their energy on cultivation during this time and had no interest in studying books. Hurriedly, the exams ended, and there was no school on Saturday. Instead of going to school to cultivate as usual, Jack Clark went to the bustling commercial street, planning to practice in the noisy environment. Today, he was dressed in a white t-shirt, gray pants, and white flat shoes, simple and casual attire. With a tall figure, fine and handsome facial features, and a clean face, he attracted many looks as soon as he sat down under a tree shade. Especially the girls in cool outfits who passed by this sunny handsome youth, they would deliberately stop, pretending to check out the surrounding shops. Unfortunately, even though some of these beauties are pretty and have sexy figures, the youth closed his eyes and started meditating as soon as he sat down, unable to see the view around him. Some female students who wanted to approach him stopped when they saw this. Undisturbed by the outside world, Jack Clark closed his eyes and entered the special state created by his acute five senses. With his keen hearing filtering out useless noises and his sense of smell distinguishing the people and objects around him, the touch-sensitive hairs all over his body sensed the flow of air in the space. Once familiar with this state, Jack Clark divided his attention. For the past month, he's been practicing multitasking. Although he couldn't completely control two bodies with ease, he could already focus on his main body while partially controlling the heavy armored beast. The vast river with its turbulent waves was hundreds of meters wide and more than 40 meters deep at its deepest point. It was home to countless aquatic creatures, many of which had undergone slight mutations due to the environment. Near the riverbank, a creature the length of 80 centimeters and covered in heavy armor crawled out of a hole and swam toward the deep water area. Its limbs were thick and strong. After being released for just 2 days, the avatar had already grown 10 centimeters due to abundant food. Its figure became more massive, its defense stronger, and its strength more exaggerated. At the same time, its evolution value increased at a rate of 5 points per day, far exceeding its previous growth rate. Of course, this was also inseparable from Jack's diligence in controlling the heavy armored beast to feed at every opportunity, including getting up to eat in the middle of the night. Soon, Jack controlled the heavy armored beast to reach the deep water area more than 20 meters deep, where the visibility was murky and only a vague range of 5 to 6 meters was visible. Before they swam far, a huge figure appeared in the heavy armored beast's sight. Action. It was a ferocious fish mutated from a crocodile swallow eel, 3 meters long with a long crocodile-like mouth. Its body was covered in thick scales and its back even grew sharp bone spurs. When the heavy armored beast noticed it, the fish caught sight of the small creature and came charging at it, ready to make a meal of it. To the mutated crocodile swallow eel, more than 3 meters long and as thick as a human body, an 80-centimeter heavy armored beast was considered a small target, which the eel could bite off in one gulp. The heavy armored beast calmly watched the mutated crocodile swallow eel speeding toward it, watching indifferently as its wide-open mouth tore through the water, leaving splashes in its wake. Bang! With the heavy armored beast not dodging, the mutated crocodile swallow eel's big mouth fiercely bit its stomach and back, releasing a ripping force under its immense kinetic energy. In the past, the unique beasts relied on high-speed impact, using their kinetic energy and sharp teeth to tear their prey to pieces. But today, it was like biting an alloy steel. The mutated crocodile swallow eel's sharp teeth shattered. Choked with pain, the eel grew even more violent. It clamped down on the heavy armored beast with its massive biting force, twisting its enormous body wildly underwater to shred the hard prey in its mouth. But even after the mutated crocodile swallow eel had exhausted itself, the heavy armored beast remained unscathed in its mouth. Even the relatively weaker belly armor only had a small scratch, showing the terror of the defensive talent. It seemed as if the unique beast was biting at the heavy armored beast's belly and back, but in fact, during its burst of strength tearing and biting, all the force was being distributed throughout its body by the exoskeleton structure. Combined with the multi-layered internal structure which could gradually weaken the pressure on the body and the strength of the external armor which increased as its size grew. All these factors combined made the heavy armored beast's defense terrifying. Unable to tear it apart, the exhausted unique beast had no choice but to release the heavy armored beast. At this moment, the heavy armored beast, which had just tested its defense, swung its tail and gathered its muscle strength in a twist of its body. With a powerful blow from one of its claws, it struck the eel's head. Bang! The impact caused water to explode, and the mutated crocodile swallow eel's skull collapsed. Blood mixed with white liquid spewed out, and it was hammered to death by the heavy armored beast's one swift claw. The heavy armored beast killed the mutated fish and swallowed a large chunk of flesh and blood torn from its back, chewing it with blood flowing, looking extremely ferocious. Chapter 35. Synchronous strengthening. It didn't seem to have any effect. In the pedestrian street, Jack, who had been sitting all afternoon, slowly opened his eyes, his face showing a hint of disappointment. He originally thought that cultivating his heart's eye in a noisy place like the pedestrian street would be helpful for his cultivation and more compatible with his cultivation method. However, the progress was just like yesterday. It seemed that he was thinking too much. Lost in thought, Jack stood up and left. As he sat there, he basked in the sun and practiced cultivating his heart's eye. Along the way, several beauties had come over to strike up a conversation. However, at that time, Jack was in a state of cultivation, with half of his consciousness focused on hunting and battling with his avatar as a unique beast, so he had no desire to engage with them. Having fun hunting various mutated fish deep in the river is better than engaging with women. Ellipsis. On the second day, Sunday, Jack didn't go to the pedestrian street or school. In the sunlight, he sat cross-legged in the wooden corridor of the backyard, trying hard to practice his dragon elephant power. At the same time, a part of his mind was on the heavy armored beast. More than 10 meters deep underwater, the heavy armored beast had just hunted a common mutated fish more than 3 meters long and was now eating it. After a few days of rampant hunting, the heavy armored beast had become the ruler of an area with a radius of several kilometers. None of the mutated fish targeted by it could escape. At the same time, with its constant eating and growing, its body was becoming bigger and heavier. At Novelban at. Suddenly, Jack stopped his cultivation and opened his eyes. Just now, he felt a faint warm current in his body, similar to the sensation when his avatar evolved. Could it be? Jack's thoughts shifted, and the attribute page appeared. In just 2 days, the 4 major attributes had unknowingly increased by 2 points. Among them, the highest strength attribute had reached 63 points. My various attributes are slowly increasing, Jack was somewhat surprised. Then, an incredible speculation emerged in his mind. Synchronous strengthening. As the heavy armored beast avatar grew, his body would also be influenced and continuously become stronger. Before, the reason why he didn't notice the synchronicity was that his previous 6-legged salamander was too weak. It was so weak that even a little growth in it couldn't cause any noticeable change for Jack, who was practicing true martial arts. Only after the second evolution, when the heavy armored beast's size had exceeded a certain threshold, did it begin to affect Jack, whose physique had already reached 60 points. Thinking about this possibility, Jack's breathing became more rapid. If his speculation was correct, how terrifying would his body become once his avatar grew to be thousands or even millions of meters long due to synchronous strengthening? Would he be able to destroy a planet with one punch? Jack was excited. It seems that from now on, I need to devote more energy to cultivating my avatar. Compared to the slow progress of true martial arts, the growth rate of the heavy armored beast was much more exaggerated. It was only just under 1 meter now and not yet noticeable, but it would be terrifying after a few more evolutions. Especially after entering the deep sea and growing to hundreds or thousands of meters. On Monday, due to the freshman ranking tournament, South Sky Marshall Height was bustling with activity, with nearly 2,000 freshmen rushing to the sports center in the cultivation area. It was a stadium specially built for competitions, large enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. At this time, the 4 big screens hanging from the ceiling of the sports hall were broadcasting South Sky Marshall Heights school news, while the stands around were full of freshmen who hadn't established their foundation yet. Beneath the stands, in an area equivalent to 4 football fields, there were 50 martial arts arenas, each spanning 6 meters long and wide. Each martial arts arena was divided into 4 rows, ranging from number 1 to 50. As they weren't uniformly assigned, the first 2 arenas stood out. At this moment, at the south entrance of the sports stadium, freshmen were lined up in 10 different queues, registering at 10 self-service registration machines. On each of their faces, there was excitement, agitation, anxiety, and nervousness. As these newcomers were registering, on the upper part of the stands, a few upper grade students who weren't wearing school uniforms had their arms crossed. One of them asked uninterestedly, "Gary, what did you call us here for?" The long-haired youth with a smile on his face replied, "What else could it be? Of course, it's to watch the competition together." Someone disdainfully said, "A bunch of foundation establishment rookies at the first layer heaven, what's so interesting about this match?" Zhang Yao is right. These guys haven't even cultivated their true strength yet. Watching them fight is like watching children play house. I don't know why the school insists on hosting this competition. An envious senior student said, "Yeah, I heard that as long as they rank in the top 50, they'll get an extra 5 contribution points every month. It's as easy as picking them up." One should know that those second grade students, during their time in school, only received 10 contribution points a month. If they wanted more contribution points, they needed to complete tasks for it. However, these freshmen only needed to be in the top 50 to be almost on par with them, thanks to their monthly allowance. The long-haired youth shook his head. Don't underestimate this group of freshmen. They've only been in school for a month, and some have already broken through to the second layer heaven. Gary, you're talking about that freshman named Jane Aiken, right? Breaking through to the second layer heaven in half a month. Her talent is already on par with that monster, Carol Koch. The long-haired youth smiled bitterly. Not just her, there are several other powerful characters among these new students. One of them has a perfect compatibility with his cultivation method. What? Perfect compatibility. How is that possible? This news surprised those few senior students. The long-haired youth shrugged. Don't look at me like that. I heard it from Elder Polis. It should be correct. Although that new student hasn't broken through to the second layer heaven yet, they have innate divine strength and practice the advanced skill Ox Devil Mountain Shaking formula. Their power is extremely terrifying. What a monster, one of the senior students swallowed. With innate divine strength and the inherently powerful advanced skill Ox Devil Mountain Shaking formula, the power under perfect compatibility would reach a terrifying level. It seems that this freshman class should not be underestimated. The other senior students became serious. On the other side, Jack, carrying a long knife on his back, had just completed his registration. Action. Jack, over here. Just as Jack squeezed out of the crowd, Justin Wellen from afar waved to him. Around him were several other Class 3 students, who were vaguely separated into 3 groups. One group was led by class leader Sherry Lesser, with Justin Wellen, Sawyer Levin, and Vera Lee around her. The other side was a small group led by Matt Watkins, followed by several other classmates who hadn't joined their club. Seeing Jack walking over, Justin Wellen grinned. "Jack, if you're unlucky enough to run into me later, I won't hold back." As he spoke, he patted the thick shield on his back. The shield was 10 centimeters thick, covered in cone stings, and was clearly his weapon. Such a thick, heavy shield, even if made of an alloy much lighter than ordinary steel, still weighed more than 100 kilograms. It was a true heavy weapon. Jack smiled slightly. "If you encounter me, just give it your all. My goal this time is to participate, gain practical experience, and not worry about winning or losing." Sherry Lesser nodded. "That's right, this is just an ordinary competition, and everyone's strength is average. It's mainly for exchanging experiences and not taking victory or defeat too seriously." Class leader is right. Jack nodded humbly. Chapter 36. Concession. Jack Clark surveyed his surroundings as everyone's heads filled his vision. These students, like them, were gathered in groups according to their classes, forming more than 40 teams, and the estimated number of competitors would be around 500. It was Jack's first time seeing so many true martial arts freshmen. They were all strangers since they usually practice in different buildings. Besides, the students who had just established their foundation in a few days chose to give up. Otherwise, the number of participants would even be higher. Silence. At Nobleman at. As the broadcast rang out, the entire audience went quiet. Following the sound, they saw more than a dozen teachers sitting on the main stage in the distance, including James Clark and Lori Parma. In the middle of the teachers, a middle-aged man with a full beard held a microphone and said in a deep voice, "I am Vernon Leinster, the class teacher of Class 1, and the referees for today's competition are the teachers present here. Cultivation is a very boring task, especially for freshmen like you. Many people gradually slack off after experiencing the novelty of it. That's why the official organization has arranged this competition to let you recognize the gap between you and your peers, and by acknowledging the shame, you can strive harder in your cultivation. You have no idea how much it costs our country to train you. Don't take this for granted. You should know that every resource you use is earned by other soldiers who are fighting on the battlefield. At the same time, each of these cultivation methods was created after the founders exhausted their mind and body. The division of initial access rights exists because those who waste their opportunities have no right to enjoy them. Of course, when I say wasters, I am not referring to students who establish their foundation slowly, but to those who become complacent, lazy, and unambitious after obtaining cultivation opportunities. In the next 3 years, these people will be gradually eliminated from the school. Vernon Leinster said solemnly. With that said, let me add 2 more points. On the internet these days, there are widespread rumors that those who cannot establish their foundation within a month have no cultivation talent or have only low talent if their foundation was established just in time. To me, these statements are completely nonsense. Establishing a foundation is just a beginning, so what if it is a bit slow? You should know that cultivation is a continuous process of self-improvement and breaking through limits. In the late period, every breakthrough of a realm is calculated in increments of 10 or 20 years. Every breakthrough of a major realm is a sublimation and a transformation of one's life level. It's incomparable to the 1 or 2 months slower start in foundation establishment. Everybody, remember that cultivation is a long, tough journey. Only those with determination and perseverance can make it to the end. The initial pace is just like stumbling blocks along the road that you can easily crush with only a little effort. If you cannot even endure this little bit of grinding, no matter whether you cultivate or enter other industries, you will be mediocre in your entire life. Many students who had established their foundation within a month were inspired by the passionate words of the class teacher named Vernon Leinster. Even some freshmen who had given up in the audience stands once again ignited their faith in cultivation. That's right, they were only half a month or a month slower, so why couldn't they cultivate? Alright, it's about time, and now I'll tell you the rules of the competition. The competition is divided into 3 rounds. In the first round, everyone will fight consecutively against 6 opponents, each round lasting 10 minutes. 1 point added for a win and 1 point deducted for a loss. Teachers will determine the winner and loser based on their fighting performance if there is no outcome within 10 minutes. After the first round, the top 200 scorers will advance. The second round will be a martial arts arena defense battle. Each person only has 1 challenge opportunity, and defending against 4 opponents will be counted as a successful defense. After determining the top 50, the third round of free challenge matches will begin. If you are not satisfied with your current arena ranking, you can challenge the top 10. Winners continue, losers' ranking remains unchanged. By the way, although the positions of the top 50 are different, the contribution points rewarded every month are the same. Alright, let the competition begin. Everyone, based on the names displayed behind the arena numbers on the big screen, starts the first round. I am at number 13 arena. I am at number 9 arena. I am at number 45. I am at no 2 arena. Haha, class leader, Jack, I'll go first. Saying that, Justin Wellen excitedly ran towards the no 2 challenge platform in the distance. Jack then saw his name at the number 49 arena as well. After greeting Crystal and the others, Jack hurriedly jogged over. There was already a female student standing on the arena. She was ordinary looking and said politely when she saw Jack hopping onto the arena, "Hey classmate, shall we have a simple friendly exchange without weapons?" "Sure. Jack nodded, and placed his knife at the side of the arena. Attention! Number 49 arena, the competition will officially start in 3 seconds. With the electronic announcement, Jack and the female student both looked serious and silently counted to 3 in their hearts. The girl opposite suddenly shouted, "Be careful." The moment her voice fell, the girl erupted with incredible speed, even faster than Sawyer Levin. It was clear that her main cultivation method was in speed. But, bam! Jack blocked the girl's high kick with his left arm, not moving an inch, disregarding the girl's explosive force of several hundred kilograms. At the moment she was blocked, the girl twisted her body in midair and performed a triple kick at lightning speed, targeting Jack's head and neck weak points. But all of her attacks were effortlessly blocked by Jack, who reacted even faster. Just as the girl's strength ran out on her third kick, and while she was retreating midair, Jack moved like lightning, grabbing her ankle with one arm like an elephant trunk. Action. Ah! The girl in midair was shocked. Immediately she felt an enormous force attacking her, and she was directly thrown by Jack more than 10 meters away, crashing down at the bottom of the arena with a loud bang. The girl falling from the sky startled several nearby students. Looking at the girl still dazed on the ground, unable to stand up due to her sore butt, Jack smiled slightly. "Thank you for letting me win." This girl was more powerful than Sawyer Levin, specializing in leg techniques and speed as well. Unfortunately, she encountered Jack, whose speed, strength, and reaction exceeded the first layer heaven limit, and was instantly crushed and defeated. The teacher's voice came through the arena's loudspeakers. Number 49 arena, student Jack Clark wins. The second round of the competition will start after an 8-minute break. Jack looked up, saw the camera on the pillar, and smiled. "Teacher, I think I can start the next match without resting." It wasn't that Jack was showing off, but that the girl he just fought was too weak, and there was no need to waste time resting. "Fine." The teacher on the main stage hesitated for a moment. Immediately, a burly youth with a heavy hammer weapon on his back excitedly ran to the number 49 arena and jumped onto the stage. Chapter 37. Sweeping across. The youth with the heavy hammer on his back was nearly 1.9 meters tall, with a sturdy build. After leaping onto the martial arts arena, he excitedly looked at Jack Clark in the distance. Class 19, Marcus Lee. Class 3, Jack Clark. Jack Clark also announced his name. Marcus Lee reminded, "Brother, I cultivate the advanced skill, Chaos Heavy Hammer. If you feel that you can't withstand it later, admit defeat early, don't get hurt." Marcus Lee then grasped in his hand the heavy hammer behind him, which was 2 meters long, as thick as an arm, with the hammerhead as huge as a washbasin, and its surface completely blunt. "Thank you for the reminder." Jack Clark nodded solemnly. Never mind the advanced skill, just the opponent's hammer alone was probably close to 100 kilograms. Anyone who could use such a heavy weapon would naturally be no weakling. With a clang, Jack Clark drew out a 2 meters long straight blade. The strength of the first layer heaven limit only gave him a basic advantage, but the outcome of the battle was not about comparing physical strength, but also depended on combat sense and the blessings of cultivational methods. Kill. A vast outburst of chi blood surged within Marcus Lee, like a furious giant bear charging at Jack Clark. The huge hammerhead waving in the air caused a piercing howl. The aura was shocking. Jack Clark inhaled deeply. His body's dragon elephant power started to circulate. In an instant, all of his muscles swelled up a size, radiating a furious aura. He advanced in retaliation. Jack Clark burst out at an even faster speed, attacked in response to the attack, slashed down with a knife held in both hands. Clang. In midair, at the moment when the knife and hammer collided, sparks scattered, a piercing collision sound echoed. Afterward, a fearsome counter-shock strength erupted, causing Jack Clark's mouth to throb with pain. Across from him, Marcus Lee didn't fare much better. Like Jack Clark, he was pushed back a step by the counter-shock force. After a single move, both sides appeared evenly matched, but the previously confident Marcus Lee's expression became solemn. Because heavy weapons naturally had a strength advantage, coupled with the inertia of swinging and his charging kinetic blessing, he could have unleashed an impact force far beyond its limit. In this situation, his opponent could actually somewhat match him with just a knife. The pure power was already beyond him, but wasn't this even better? Marcus Lee's blood was boiling with excitement. What strong power! Continue. As he spoke, he circulated the internal skill in his body, a stronger force transmitted to his arms. Swinging the 100-kilogram heavy hammer, he spun around with his waist as the axis and blasted out another hammer. This strike, carrying the inertia of power, not only had greater strength but also greater speed. The piercing howl and afterimage instantly appeared above Jack Clark's head. But this time Jack Clark did not block head-on. His figure slightly shifted and he vanished from his original spot. Boom! The heavy hammer, carrying over 1,000 kilograms of force, smashed into the martial arts arena. Under the furious power, the hard stone slabs instantly shattered, countless tiny shards splashed out in all directions. Clang! Jack Clark appeared at Marcus Lee's side, horizontal chop, but was deflected by Marcus Lee's timely use of the hammer shaft. But immediately Marcus Lee's face changed because the moment he blocked the blade, Jack Clark reversed his grip and gave a pull, allowing the sharp blade to slide along the handle towards his palm. The sudden change of move scared Marcus Lee into letting go hastily. But after spinning around to retract and avoid the range of the straight blade's attack, he turned around and kicked the middle of the hammer shaft. Under the power unleashed, the freed hammer shaft spun around with the hammer head as the center. He tried to repel Jack Clark and take back the attacking rights. Jack Clark, however, directly made an overbearing slash down. Clang! Under the scattering sparks, a smile tugged at the corner of Jack Clark's mouth. You've lost. Boom! With the ground vibrating beneath him, Jack Clark rushed forward. The 2 meters long straight blade in his hand pierced the air. The gleam of the blade flashed and appeared at the chest of Marcus Lee, who was 3 meters away. At nobleman at. Looking at the blade tip which suddenly stopped at his chest, Marcus Lee was still somewhat unresponsive. Jack Clark slowly withdrew his blade, smiled, and said, "Thank you for conceding." Amazing. Marcus Lee slowly exhaled, then he quickly admitted defeat, picked up his heavy hammer, and straightforwardly jumped off the martial arts arena. Number 49 Arena, student Jack Clark wins. Do you require a break? Yes. This time Jack Clark did not choose to carry on fighting continuously. He withdrew his blade, stood tall, and was gradually calming his boiling chi blood, reviewing the experience gained from the fight just now. Marcus Lee was actually quite strong. Even under the full burden of his heavy weapon, his frontal strength was not inferior to Jack Clark's. Unfortunately for him, in the very first match, he faced Jack Clark, who was not only equal in strength, but faster in reactions and greater in overall strength. Moreover, as soon as Marcus launched his attack, Jack disrupted his rhythm by overpowering him with sheer force. If Marcus was ever given an opportunity to wield his heavy hammer, amassing momentum with his inertia and hammer technique, it would take Jack at least 10 moves to defeat him. After a brief rest, Jack started his third fight. The opponent was a spectacle-wearing youth. The boy was utterly terrified when Jack powerfully cut down his weapon with a single swipe, and he quickly admitted defeat. Then came the fourth battle. This time, the opponent was a cute girl wearing a lovely hair decoration. Her weapon was a 1.5 meter long thin sword. However, after a mere 3 swift blows, the cute girl was made to cry by the aggressively spirited Jack. The female student sobbed, "I quit," dropped her sword, and jumped off the martial arts arena. Witnessing this made Jack somewhat embarrassed. Did he perhaps go too far? Then came the fifth match. The opponent was a student who had just crossed into the foundation establishment stage this month. Jack, in one swift motion, sent both the boy and his weapon flying several meters away. After such a domineering move, the boy was terrified and promptly conceded defeat. It wasn't until the sixth match that he had a slightly stronger competitor. This time, it was a girl who looked haughty, her attitude resembling one who thought the world owed her a fortune. Her weapon was the same as Jack's. The girl didn't bother with chit-chat, as though believing Jack didn't deserve to know her name. In a flash, she was at his side with an afterimage following her. So fast. This speed was out of the first layer heaven category. Even Jack was a little surprised. Clang. Jack blocked the incoming knife with his blade. The collision of their bladed weapons caused sparks to fly. But the girl's face changed slightly as she was forced to retreat because of the furious power transferred to her through her sword. In the first layer heaven, the main characteristic of true martial arts is power enhancement. Thus, the power doubles, becoming wild and fierce, while agility and speed are average, adhering to the victory by strength route. If a cultivator emphasizes agility, their speed would far exceed that of their peers. They would have nimble movements, but wouldn't have as much strength as the strength-based cultivators. For someone like Crystal Leinster, who specializes in sword skills, their sword moves would be lethal and complex, but their speed and strength would be quite mediocre in comparison. In general, each cultivator has their own merits. Like the girl in front of him, she cultivated a method focusing on agility and her speed was startlingly fast. Just as she was retreating, Her body moved at an odd angle. Like a phantom, she reappeared at Jack's right side and aimed another stroke at his lower body. Clang, clang, clang. Jack, immovable as a mountain, with sharp eyes, precisely blocked the phantasmal afterimages and the strange streaks of sword light surrounding him. Sparks flew with each clash. But after just over 10 moves, the girl explosively retreated to a distance 5 meters away. Her hand, which was gripping her long knife, shook uncontrollably, while her palm bled. Even though her speed was fast, and her movement ghost-like, her strength fell far short of Jack's. Each time their swords met, she felt an overbearing power shaking her arm numb and causing pain in her palms. After only 10 strokes, she was already wounded. Jack exhaled a breath, smiled gently, and said, "You have been lenient." Humph. The girl gave Jack a deep glance, snorted coldly, and turned around to jump off the arena. Number 49 Arena, Student Jack Clark wins. You have completed your matches. Please step down for rest and wait for the results. Knowing he was definitely going to advance, Jack jumped down from the arena with a smile on his face. After decisively defeating 6 opponents in a row, Jack's performance aroused the attention of some teachers on the main stage. Lori Parma even let out an astonished sound. On his mind was Jack Clark, a student who had established the foundation in less than a month. He had cultivated the power-exploding dragon elephant power, and his special sword skill was the mind's eye bright knife. But his combat performance today seemed a bit too strong. Even 2 geniuses, who had cultivated advanced skills, were not his match. Chapter 38. Attacking the weak with strength. Jack Clark wasn't surprised that he won easily. Although his dragon elephant power had only been cultivated to the first layer middle stage, his basic attributes were at least twice as strong as his opponents. If he lost, it would be a problem. In this world, there was no such thing as the weak defeating the strong, only the strong triumphing over the weak. If you can win, it means you are stronger than the opponent. Even some genius students who were rumored to be able to fight across realms in the cultivation world would still have an edge in either a sudden power explosion or a stronger secret skill than their opponent. They could only have an advantage in closing the gap between the two sides' realms, and be able to fight across realms. Descending from the martial arts arena with his long knife, Chen Chu started watching other matches. There were students carrying weapons around the 50 arenas, with names constantly changing on the big screen above their heads. Many people in the audience were cheering for their classmates. Boom. Under a violent energy wave, a male student holding a stick, or rather, a pillar, smashed his opponent off the martial arts arena. His almost 2-meter-tall figure was even more fierce than Marcus Lee, emitting a terrifying aura. What a terrifying strength. When Chen Chu looked at the iron column, over 3 meters long and as thick as an adult's thigh, even if it was made from lightweight alloy, it would still weigh hundreds of kilograms, his eyes twitched. At Nobleman at. Who is this guy? He's so fierce. Chen Chu was shocked. Does he have innate divine strength since he's using such a heavy weapon? His arm strength must be more than 1,000 kilos. There's no way a first-layer heaven cultivator has this much power. Chen Chu had thought that his basic attributes exceeded the first-layer heaven limit and that he should be among the top in this batch of freshmen. He didn't expect to see such a powerful person, a total monster. Chen Chu took a deep look at that giant-like male student and headed towards the next arena. At this moment, not only Chen Chu, but also the students in the audience seats were getting worked up. The fast-paced action with heavy weapons was electrifying. As the heavy weapons collided, the air above the entire arena was filled with a rumbling sound. In contrast to the engrossed freshmen, the teachers on the main stage didn't particularly mind. To them, these freshman competitions were nothing remarkable. They were too slow and their strength was too weak. They didn't even possess true strength, let alone the power of heaven and earth carried by true strength. While they casually watched the video monitors, occasionally, a teacher would shout at an arena where a student couldn't hold back, declaring the more dominant side victorious. At this time, a teacher asked in confusion, "Mr. Lester, why do you think the higher-ups allocated so many resources this time and let all the first-class universities focus on cultivating this batch of freshmen?" Vernon Leinster shook his head slightly. Not just this batch, but every year from now on, freshmen from the 3 major Federation countries will receive more resources than previous batches. Lori Parma was surprised. What? The training resources are increasing every year, and it's happening throughout the 3 major Federation countries. Is it because our side has won a great victory on the battlefield? The other teachers also showed excitement, thinking this was the reason. Just as these teachers were getting excited, Vernon Leinster's expression turned solemn and he shook his head slightly. No, it's because the 5th Army Corps has opened up several new resource points. As for the situation on the battlefield, it remains tense. The 3rd, 9th, and 15th Army Corps are under great pressure, witnessing at least one King-level battle every month. Under these circumstances, the casualties of the Army Corps in various countries have been increasing in the past 2 years, and more fresh blood is needed. That's why the higher-ups have allocated these additional resources, urging us to expand our training targets, not to give up on even those students who establish their foundations within 2 months. Vernon Leinster's words made the faces of these teachers turn solemn. So, the situation is becoming even more critical. After a while, Lori Parma slowly exhaled, but even so, is there any need to use resources to cultivate freshmen who can't establish their foundation within a month? Action. If these resources were tilted towards the 2nd and 3rd year students, their growth rate might be faster. Vernon Leinster shook his head. You can't see it like that. The growth of the 2nd and 3rd year students is already fixed, so allocating more resources to them won't have much effect. On the other hand, these freshmen, although those who break through the foundation establishment a month later have indeed poor initial talents and their cultivation speed is despairingly slow. But with such a huge base of talent in the 3 major Federation countries, if another mysterious martial king were to emerge, it would be a significant gain for the human race. I think this is also the intention of the higher-ups, to use resources to expand the cultivation base of humans, hoping that a few more monstrous talents who have accumulated a lot can emerge and enhance the foundation of the human race. Lori Parma and others nodded thoughtfully. Having finished his matches early, Jack Clark wandered around visiting various martial arts arenas, and during this time he saw Crystal Leinster cleanly defeating her opponent and the two nodded to each other as they passed. He also saw Sawyer Levin being defeated by a very strong female student and leaving the stage disheartened. Suddenly, Jack Clark stopped and his eyes fell on the number 9 arena ahead, where a beautiful girl who looked almost identical to Crystal Leinster was standing with a sword. Unlike Crystal, this girl's hair was black with a hint of blue, her face always carried a gentle smile, and her eyes were soft, giving people a feeling of watery warmth. Her opponent was also a female student who wielded a long, slender samurai sword. After nodding to each other, the two sides immediately took action, turning into two shadows that collided. Clang, clang, clang. The fierce sword light and the sharp sword shadows intertwined as the two figures spun around, leaving faint afterimages and showing great strength. Both girls focused on sword skill and blade skill. One had swift and dazzling knife flashes, while the other had sword lights that filled the space like water, captivating the surrounding audience. Clang. Suddenly, a dazzling spark burst open, and the girl wielding the samurai sword let out a suppressed hum. Her figure appeared at the edge of the arena, her face pale. I lost. Reluctantly dropping a sentence, the girl with the samurai sword jumped off the stage. Number 9 arena, student Mandy Leinster wins. You have completed your matches, please step down and rest while waiting for the results. The girl named Mandy Leinster stood with her sword collected, slightly nodding to the watching classmates around her, showing excellent manners before jumping off the stage and leaving. Is this the class leader's sister? Her strength is quite impressive. Jack Clark pondered. Just now, both of their movement speeds had reached the first layer heaven limit, which ordinary people couldn't keep up with, not inferior to the arrogant girl Jack finally defeated. With this speed, ordinary people couldn't see their movements clearly, let alone the kinetic blessing and sharp swordsmanship brought about by speed. This level of strength ranked among the top freshmen present, but Jack could see that Mandy Leinster had defeated that girl quite easily and had plenty of room to spare. If it weren't for this ranking competition, I wouldn't have known that there are so many experts among the freshmen. Jack shook his head and sighed, his slight sense of superiority due to his enhanced physique vanishing without a trace. This little advantage was not enough for him to sweep through his peers, he needed to work harder on cultivating his devouring ability. Over 500 participants, 50 arenas, one match every 10 minutes, and with each person completing 6 matches, the first round didn't end until noon. Everyone dispersed for lunch. Chapter 39 Good luck. Noon, canteen. As soon as Jack Clark sat down, Justin Wellen came over with his tray, frowning. Jack, I have no hope of advancing this time. What happened? Jack Clark was a bit surprised. With his strength, even if he couldn't make it into the top 50, he shouldn't be unable to pass the first round, right? At this time, Crystal Leinster, Sawyer Levin, Vera Lee, and Freya Louise also came over. Freya Louise and Crystal Leinster sat down across from them, while Vera Lee and Sawyer Levin sat at the next table. Crystal shook her head. Justin's luck was too bad. His first opponent was Jane Aiken, and he just surrendered right away. Justin Welland defended himself. That's because she held a realm advantage. I'm not stupid. Of course, I would choose to surrender against a second layer heaven expert. As if afraid of being underestimated, Justin Welland shrugged his shoulders. It's not just me. Even if you, class leader, faced her, it would be the same. There's no hope. Or rather, in this ranking competition, no one can shake her position as the number one. She's so strong. Jack Clark was somewhat surprised. Action. Welland reasoned. Of course, when breaking through to the second layer heaven, there would be a significant increase, just like our foundation establishment, and the arm strength would increase by at least 100 kilograms. Besides, experts in the second layer heaven realm have true strength, especially when she cultivates advanced skills. The explosive increase under true strength is at least 3 to 4 times. Who can be her opponent in this situation of being crushed in all aspects? Jack Clark silently nodded. With an estimated basic strength of 400 kilograms, plus at least a threefold boost from true strength, as well as faster speed and kinetic energy amplification. Her casual strike could easily explode with an impact force of 3,000 kilograms, or more than 3 tons. Indeed, no one could compete with such strength. Even that guy who fought with an iron column might not be enough. As the most monstrous genius in South Sky Martial Height, Jane Aiken's true combat power should be terrifying. Jack Clark then became confused. But wait, just losing one match shouldn't be a problem for you to advance to the first round, right? With more than 500 people, and each person playing 6 matches, there wouldn't be too many undefeated people. So it shouldn't be a problem to enter the top 200 even if you lose one match. The problem is that I lost 3 matches. Talking about this, Justin Welland looked bitter. In the second match, I met a pervert holding a pillar. His strength was terrifying, and I was directly smashed off the martial arts arena with his 3 stakes. Then, although I won 3 consecutive matches, in the 6th match I met a guy named Marcus Lee who practiced Chaos Heavy Hammer, and his skill happened to restrain me. Due to my miscalculation, I was hit by his hammer technique and was knocked off the martial arts arena with over 20 consecutive strikes, even though I had a great defense. Your luck is indeed quite bad. Jack Clark didn't know what to say about this. Having finished talking about himself, Justin Welland casually asked, by the way, Jack, how about you? How many matches did you lose? Jack Clark coughed, humbly said, I'm fine, I guess. My luck is not bad. The opponents I met were not very strong, so I should have a chance to advance. Your luck is so good. Hearing that, Justin Welland couldn't help but feel envious. However, he didn't think much about it and assumed that Jack Clark was indeed lucky, and the opponents he met were ordinary players who had established their foundations within half a month or a month. Crystal Leinster and Sawyer Levin also thought the same. But as soon as Jack Clark finished speaking, Freya Louise across from him couldn't help but smile with her lips pressed, looking at him with a strange gaze. At that time, Crystal and the others were competing and didn't know who Jack's opponents were since there were too many people around and the venue was too large. However, she had been watching Jack from the audience seats all along. It was not his luck, but his absolute strength that swept through all his opponents, including Marcus Lee, who defeated Justin Welland. She was shocked for a long time, as just a few days ago, Jack Clark couldn't even beat Justin Welland. Jack Clark looked at Crystal Leinster and curiously asked, what about you guys, class leader? I'm fine. I didn't encounter any tough opponents. Crystal's tone was relaxed and breezy. At the other table, the short-haired girl, Vera Lee, raised her hand and said with a smile, I only lost 2 matches. I should have a chance to advance, better than Justin Welland and Sawyer Levin. I lost 3 matches. Sawyer Levin was also a bit depressed. He had bad luck and encountered 3 geniuses who practiced advanced cultivation methods. Otherwise, he should have advanced to the second round without any problems. After lunch, everyone returned to the sports center. There was still an hour before the afternoon matches, and Jack Clark found a random seat in the audience area. At that moment, a faint fragrance wafted, and it was Freya Louise sitting behind him. She leaned forward curiously and asked, Jack, did you break through to the first layer heaven limit? Jack Clark turned his head and looked at the girl's side profile, shook his head and said, no, but I did make some progress in Dragon Elephant Power recently. Dragon Elephant Power? Freya was puzzled. Jack Clark nodded and whispered, yes, my cultivation of Dragon Elephant Power has become smoother, and my strength has doubled, so I was able to defeat those people today. True martial compatibility. Freya was startled. I feel that this should be the reason. Jack Clark knew he couldn't hide it from her, so he prepared to use this reason to cover up the changes in him. True martial compatibility was an enigmatic concept that even the creators of cultivation methods couldn't determine. Freya marveled. To give you the power comparable to the first layer heaven limit in just a week, it seems that your compatibility with dragon elephant power is at least high level. What a pity. At this point, her face showed a look of regret. Because dragon elephant power was just a low level martial art, if Jack Clark practiced a high level power type skill, perhaps he might have a chance to catch up to Jane Aiken. Jack was not concerned. It's okay. Once I cultivate dragon elephant power to its grand accomplishment and accumulate enough contribution points, I can exchange it for a high level skill. Maybe by then, I'll be even more compatible with that skill. As long as the main true martial art was cultivated to its grand accomplishment, it could be replaced with higher level skills of the same type, which would automatically overwrite the original true martial art. Therefore, Jack was not too worried about the fact that dragon elephant power was a low level martial art. During the waiting period, seeing that there was still time, Jack Clark's consciousness involuntarily sank, and his perspective suddenly switched to the heavy armored beasts. In the dry cave, the 90-centimeter long heavy armored beast slowly opened its eyes, stretched its limbs, and entered the river through the underground cave entrance. Gurgle, gurgle, bubbles rolled, and the heavy armored beast gently swayed its tail, its ferocious figure swimming towards the deeper part of the river. Soon, at the 10-meter deep river surface, a half-meter long grass carp appeared within the heavy armored beast's line of sight. The black shadow lay quietly at the bottom of the river, motionless, like a piece of wood, watching the grass carp swim closer until half a meter away. Bang! Mud flew up, and the heavy armored beast suddenly swung its tail, causing the water to explode behind him. Its figure resembled a sword shooting out, biting the head of the grass carp in one go. Crack! The terrible biting force crushed the grass carp's skull, making it extremely brutal. The half-meter long grass carp was quickly consumed by the heavy armored beast, which then turned into a black shadow and disappeared, continuing to search for the next prey. Chapter 40. Overbearing. At 1:30, with the teachers taking their seats, the names of the top 200 applicants appeared on the 420-meter long and 10-meter wide big screens in the sports center. At this time, Jack Clark finally took his attention away from the full and satisfied heavy armored beast. So unlucky, I didn't make it. Justin Wellen cried out in agony, as his name wasn't on the big screen. As a genius who established his foundation within a week, he was probably the only one who didn't make it to the next round. After all, even Vera Lee was lucky enough to advance to the second round. Jack Clark glanced over and found his own name in the first row, showing a smile on his face. All those who advanced enter the arena and begin the second round of the martial arts competition. Remember, stop when you have a winner. With Class 1's director, Vernon Leinster, speaking, all the named students got up from the audience seats, picked up their weapons, and entered the field one after another. After Crystal and the others had gone down, Jack also got up and carried his long knife. It was then that Freya Louise gestured to him to cheer up, with a smile in her eyes. Good luck, Jack, try to get into the top 50. Jack turned and smiled at her, while Justin Wellen on the side was a little confused. What was going on? Where did they get the confidence to break into the top 50? When Jack came to the field below, many people had already eagerly jumped onto the 50 martial arts arenas. According to the rules, those who took the lead and won 4 consecutive matches could be considered successful defenders and would no longer accept challenges. In this case, the later the remaining opponents, the stronger they would be. Class 15, Derek Raven, who wants to challenge? Class 4, Brad Allen, who wants to come up and challenge? Me, Class 9's Hank Ferguson. Jack didn't rush to the stage but turned to look at the number 1 arena in the distance, where a girl in a black trench coat with her long hair tied in a ponytail was standing sideways. While other arenas had people eager to challenge, there was no one coming up to the number 1 arena, as if it were an invisible forbidden area. That's Class 1's Jane Aiken, huh? Jack took a deep look at the girl before turning to walk towards the number 49 arena. At No 2 arena, the male student carrying the pillar had an amazing aura, delivering a direct blow that sent a classmate flying together with his weapon, exuding an astonishing pressure. As he passed the number 10 arena, he saw Crystal standing on top, fighting fiercely against a male student with a pair of hand knives. At the number 29 arena, Matt Watkins and another male student were evenly matched. At number 34 arena, Marcus Lee, who had been defeated by Jack Clark earlier in the morning, was swinging his heavy hammer, knocking a male student off the arena after 13 consecutive strikes, his face showing a crazed laugh. But before he could be happy for long, he saw Jack walking over from not far away, and his face suddenly stiffened with a smile. Fortunately, Jack just gave him a light look and, under Marcus's somewhat nervous gaze, walked towards the rear. Thank goodness he didn't come to challenge me, it scared me to death. Marcus patted his chest. When Jack arrived at the number 49 arena, there were already 2 male students fighting each other. Seeing this, he stopped and watched with a few nearby students. Those who made it into the top 200 were all strong. Therefore, every time the two collided, a large number of sparks burst out from their weapons under the powerful impact, and the shock waves from the collision made the air hum. Bang! After more than 20 moves, the less skilled male student was kicked off the martial arts arena. Thank you. At the number 49 arena, a buzz-cut male student showed a triumphant smile, glanced around, and shouted, "Who else wants to come up?" There were only 200 students in the top 50 martial arts arenas, so there weren't many people around each arena, and those who didn't have to compete were sitting in the audience seats. These students around the arena were watching, comparing their own strength, and thinking about which arena would be more suitable for them to challenge, as each person had only one chance. All go up. Just when a student on the side was eager to have a try, Jack jumped onto the 2 meters high martial arts arena, which immediately made the buzz-cut male student's expression slightly tense. From this seemingly handsome male student, he inexplicably felt a faint sense of oppression. The bald male student was silent for a moment before introducing himself. Class 37, Derek Raven. Class 3, Jack Clark. After saying that, Jack Clark pulled out a 2-meter-long straight blade from behind him. Derek Raven didn't dare to be careless, so he circulated the chi blood within his body, and a powerful aura spread out. In the audience seats, when Jack Clark jumped onto the number 49 martial arts arena, Freya Louise's gaze shifted to this side. At the same time, Justin Wellen also looked over and asked thoughtfully, "Freya, be honest, are you two hiding something from me?" The long-haired girl slightly pursed her lips, revealing a smile. "You'll see." Justin Wellen was speechless. Kill. On the martial arts arena, Derek Raven shouted and suddenly charged forward, appearing in front of Jack Clark in the blink of an eye after covering 4 meters. Both of his hands gripped his knife and slashed down from above. The snow-white blade tore through the air, emitting a sharp scream. It was like a white light falling from the sky, and the resulting wind from the knife even made Jack Clark's face hurt from the pressure. Clang. Sparks flew. Jack Clark blocked Derek Raven's full-strength slash effortlessly with one hand holding his horizontal knife. His body didn't even shake, completely neutralizing the impact of the slash. This scene made Derek Raven's face turn pale, and the gazes of the students watching below slightly congealed. Because this meant that Jack Clark's strength far exceeded Derek Raven's. At that moment, Jack Clark's formidable chi blood exploded, and his muscles swelled in an instant. His imposing manner changed sharply, like a giant elephant that had just been awakened. Clang. Under an astounding burst of strength from Jack Clark's wrist, Derek Raven was directly forced to retreat several steps. At that moment, Jack Clark stepped forward and slashed, producing an instantaneous sharp and raging wind that howled in Derek Raven's ears, causing his body hair to stand up from the intense sense of death. Clang. Derek Raven held his knife with both hands in front of him, and sparks flew again. Under the wild power, Derek Raven was directly forced to retreat several steps after Jack Clark's overbearing slash. Before he could react, the piercing sound of raging wind howled again. Clang, clang, clang. Without any extra movements, Jack Clark simply stabbed horizontally, vertically, and horizontally again with his knife. Each slash was terrifyingly fast, each containing an impact force of over 1,000 kilograms. Under such terrifying power, Derek Raven couldn't withstand it, even if he practiced advanced cultivation methods. After just 4 slashes, Derek Raven was knocked off the arena by Jack Clark's overbearing strikes, his trembling arms and the sore muscles making it difficult to even grip his weapon. Thank you. On the martial arts arena, Jack Clark slowly put away his straight blade, and his stunningly handsome face showed a gentle smile. It was impossible to see any traces of his previous overbearing and violent demeanor. "I lost," Derek Raven said with some bitterness. Soon after, when Jack Clark decided not to rest, the second student jumped onto the number 49 martial arts arena. Class 15, Zachary Lyons. Class 3, Jack Clark, be prepared. Roar. Accompanied by the faint roar of an angry elephant, Jack Clark looked like a furious giant elephant with his 2-meter-long straight blade tearing through the air, carrying a sharp howling as he slashed horizontally. Clang, clang, clang. At Nobleman at. With 3 consecutive slashes, Jack Clark directly knocked the freshman named Zachary Lyons off the martial arts arena, creating an oppressive atmosphere. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. For true martial students, first layer heaven was still at the foundation establishment stage. As a result, their matches tended to be monotonous and dull, focusing mostly on strength and speed. Only when both parties had similar strengths would their matches involve the clash of exquisite moves and battle awareness. With Jack Clark's current strength, as long as his opponents hadn't reached the first layer heaven limit, he didn't even need to use his sword skills. He simply relied on his absolute strength and speed to cut through everything effortlessly.